Can I ask you a little bit about the movies?
Well, if I can answer.
You've been in 100 of them, and I remember reading about you that you disliked the kind of gooey publicity that the fan magazines used to ladle out at a certain point in your career. Articles like "The House That Love Built," and I remember reading you quoted as saying there are not going to be any more articles where my wife and I are smiling into a skillet, and I like that. I guess there's nothing you can do about that, is there?
No, it seems
Keep
to
your
be
privacy.
a way of, I guess, press and publicity that the motion picture business has always accepted. I've always disagreed with it. I felt that to a great extent it was an invasion, just an out-and-out invasion of one's privacy. I've always felt that if one is professional, then you have a job to do. And what you do when you're not doing that job has very little to do with really your success. Mm-hmm. I know that if one weren't successful as an actor and appearing, let's say, fortunately enough in films that were successful, nobody would be interested.
Right.
You have to do the job first, and the other comes second. Hollywood, for a number of years, accepted the premise of exploiting one's private life. But, Dick, the thing that concerns me is it doesn't stop with Hollywood. Mm-hmm. In all kind of news media, whether it's magazines or newspapers or television, today the invasion of privacy is being encouraged by the very people that are going to lose it one of these days, and when they've lost it, they're going to find out that they've lost one of the most precious things that they could possibly hold on to or maintain.
How do you mean that? Who's encouraging the loss?
Well, I'll give you an example. Some poor, unfortunate fellow falls out of I can think of some real examples. When the bridge collapsed in the Ohio River, and a man was taken into a hospital, and he was given a shot of sedative. And when we saw him on the news reports that night, there were about 4 or 5 microphones being shoved into his face saying, how did it feel when the bridge collapsed? Mm-hmm. And he was actually not able, because of the whatever they'd given him, the shot to make sense about it. And he started to cry, and he said, well, all I remember was my wife and my daughter in the car, and they started to scream, and as it turned out, he'd lost them both. Now, why do we condone this kind of attempt to get a man at this terribly tragic moment? I saw one recently on television. A fellow fell out of an apartment building, and it isn't funny, 4 floors, and managed to survive, broke both legs, and they gave him a shot, took him to the hospital, and they wanted to know, with the microphone, how it felt on the way down.
I know.
I know, everyone laughs, but it's not funny.
There's another angle of that, too. Certain newsmen will dislike me for mentioning this. This is a way of showing you're courageous by mentioning that in advance. But you don't have to tell the press things. I know a friend of mine who worked on a paper, and he was sickened by the fact he was a reporter, and he was sent out to, he was the man in that position who had to say, this is a true example one day, how did it feel when you saw that your daughter had drowned? And the lady tried to tell him, and she felt that she had to, because she felt that you owe it to, for some reason, she felt you're supposed to tell the press. You don't have to answer any of those questions.
No,
if you've been in an accident, if you've been embarrassed, if you've been in a kidnapping or a tragedy, you can shut up about it. You know, you don't owe them a story. I don't know, but people feel kind of obligated to.
Well, I think that we better, as a people, you know, I come back to this country, and I spend a great deal of time away abroad, Africa, Europe, and here, it's the only way I can put it is, it's like watching a child grow. If you're with that child every day, you're not aware of its growth. Mm-hmm. But when you go away and you don't see that child, you come back and you say, my, how big you are now, how have you grown? Mm-hmm. Well, that applied to how careless and how big this monster is becoming about the lack of privacy and the invasion of privacy here. I come back and I'm absolutely shocked at the tactics and the techniques taken by news media in order to get into people's private lives. But it's being encouraged by the people that buy the newspapers, buy the magazines, or encourage this type of thing reported on television.
Gee, that reminds me of something. I've always wanted to ask someone who was a famous movie star, whose career goes through the years that yours does. Why was it, no one has ever been able to make it clear to me, why Luella Parsons and Hedda Hopper and whoever else they were able to have this terrific power that they had over people, to ruin careers and to ruin, I mean, where do these dotty old dames get their power? You don't have it anymore. Was it something about the movies at that time? One of them chewed out John Wayne once, and he had to apologize. Can you imagine?
Well, thank God that era has ended.
Yeah.
But I want to tell you that I think that most people who report for any news media have an amount of information on everyone. And I always felt that the actors were the poor slobs, the poor clowns in this, because they would take this awful chewing out because the studio production chiefs would say, you've got to cooperate with whoever it was. Knowing that whoever was reporting had something on them, that if they really turned around and got to the heads of the studios, that these would be disastrous stories.
If you
so
don't
they
let us
always
print
said,
this,
well, let the actor take the blame. If an actor goes to a party, a nice quiet party, make a wild party out of it, you know, do something. There's an old theory, as long as they spell my name right. Well, I don't believe in that. You know, you say anything as long as they spell my name right. Because I think that there are just higher principles of reporting involved. And I do feel that many actors took the brunt of a vicious kind of attack on them that normally would have gone to somebody else, except the studios handed their people over and said, don't talk about me. I'm talking about studio heads. Talk about the people that work for them.
Gee, that's interesting, because they had something on the other people.
That's right.
So yeah.
But don't you think that the public also is rather guilty of that? Because as long as you are a struggling personality, they always feel that they are going to help you. But the moment that you make it, it seems an awful lot of people then want to destroy it. They want to pull you down. So the more derogatory things they hear about you, the more they buy the magazine, or the more they cater to people like Hedda Hopper.
I think that must be. Oh, were you asking
No.
me?
I was just going to say,
that.
I quite agree with you.
Yeah.
I think that if the public has a curiosity, it at the same time has to have a respect. And there's no respect in their curiosity. They are willing to believe anything, but listen to anything, to put people down. In many cases, I think it's just sheer jealousy.
The most horrible thing is that they are more quick to believe the derogatory things than the good ones.
Yes, you're
They
going
never
to
remember
proven
what
innocent.
More
yes,
pungent.
the good things are.
Yeah. We have to pause, and then we'll be back, unless we... Yeah, we'll be back.